Hello, welcome to the Kernel of Truth. I'm Colonel Conrad Reynolds, along with Will Huff.
Hello, hello, hello.
You got to forgive his voice. He's had a minor sickness, and he's just getting over it.
A little laryngitis.
There's a little laryngitis there, but we're glad that Will is able to be with us today.
I'm just doing my best Bobby Kennedy impression.
There you go. Well, today is the 16th of February, Monday, and it's President's Day, and I want to wish everybody a happy President's Day.
Yeah.
And I hope you had a good Valentine's Day on Saturday. I think that was, but I'm glad that's come and gone. Now we're moving on for the rest of the year. But President's Day is great. And who's your favorite president? Well,
James Monroe, because of the way he solidified our continent and told Europe, you stay out.
The Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah.
The author of the
There's a lot of other things, but I'm up there with him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What about you?
I go back to the George Washington, man. He's my favorite. The reason he was my favorite is because he had every opportunity to call himself a king.
Yeah.
And but he chose not to.
They were begging him.
Of course. And he chose not to. And he restrained from being the all-powerful for a republic.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's wonderful. And he said, he'd do his term and he got out.
Yeah, so 2 terms is enough.
That's it. And
I
he
wish
stuck
Nancy
with
Pelosi would do that.
Well, I wish a lot of these people in Congress
Mitch
would
McConnell.
do it. These people have been there too long. It's just unbelievable.
Imagine.
But anyway, we got a lot to talk about here. A lot of it is Arkansas-centric. We have some national news, but for the most part, we're going to focus on Arkansas during this program because there's a lot of things that are happening right now. And we got some reports, very unusual. There were some complaints against one of the guys. His name is Senator Kim Hammer, running for Secretary of State. He's termed out as a state senator. He's been there 16 years. Is that right? 16 years?
Yeah, he did 8 in the House of Representatives, 8 in the Senate. His actual pitch to voters is, I'm termed out and I want another place to go.
So here's a guy who's been making laws that all of us have to follow for 16 years, and he has been one of the biggest adversaries to our efforts to get transparent elections and to get rid of he's the main one.
Yeah.
And has passed laws to take away the rights for the people of Arkansas to do citizen petitions. He has done everything he can to make it almost impossible. He's punished these people like in Searcy County, these election commissioners who did nothing more than try to do a great hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballot because they didn't want it, though. Kim Hammer was the attack dog to go after them and do everything he could to destroy them as individuals. And then they went after everybody that was trying to get signatures to do countywide initiatives. And so this guy has stepped in it big time, apparently, in an ad that he has put out. Can you describe the ad, Will?
Yeah, he does an ad talking about, ironically, election integrity. And in the ad, he appears to be breaking a law that he helped rewrite in 2024 because politicians who are elected officials are not allowed to use their private office or anything that taxpayers funded as props in their videos. And in his video, he's in his work office, apparently. He's using...
They make it... I saw the commercial. They make it, even if it's not, apparently it is, but even if it's not, he did everything in the video to give the impression that the viewer would see that he is in his work office.
Yeah, and people are saying it looks identical to his office. So, but he also used thank you cards and official letterhead and bills that come from taxpayer-funded paper and stationery, apparently, in his ad, and he zooms into some pictures on the wall of the Capitol, which are also funded by taxpayers. And according to the law that he helped rewrite, that is illegal. Not just ethically wrong and ethics violations, it's actually illegal under the same mother of a law that they're going after you with for exit polling.
Yeah, what they do is the law is written to where you could enforce it or not enforce it. And I'm sure he is 100% sure they're not going to enforce it on him. And so I probably didn't have a problem doing it, not realizing he's breaking the law. Apparently, that's what it looks like. and I guess we will find out as time goes on. But there's been several complaints.
Yeah, there have been multiple ethics complaints filed where people have sent around their complaints, letting us see it. And somebody called us today and said they're filing a criminal complaint in Pulaski County. I don't know if it's been filed or not, but they say that not just does he break ethics rules, he broke a law in Pulaski County, Arkansas, and that the prosecutor should be looking into it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure that he feels like he will never get prosecuted because, again,
he's one of the protected insiders.
He's one of the protected insiders, right? So, but we're going to wait and see, and we'll keep you updated on this particular development because I'm telling you, if anybody needs to be punished for what he's been doing to people, it's that guy.
Yeah, he used his committee to bring down the weight of a government on top of Searcy County election commissioners.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. And I'm telling you, if y'all knew the details of that, how they went after these three, really and truly patriots up in Searcy County and tried to destroy their lives.
Just because they administered a paper ballot election.
That's right. That's right. And they got 100% accuracy.
Yep.
In November.
And they saved money.
But, boy, they went after them. Instead of giving them a medal, which they should have done, they should have given them a medal. They should have given them at least a certificate of appreciation for them fighting hard for the people of their county. Because keep in mind, the people that voted on that were their quorum court. Their quorum court voted to go to paper ballots. The election commissioners are just doing what they were told to do.
Administrating.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do the best they could with, by the way, no help, not one scintilla of help from the Secretary of State's office. They basically said, you're on your own. Y'all want to do paper ballots? Fine, but we're not helping you. That's exactly what they did. And then they tried to find everything that they could possibly imagine to make sure that they said that they did something wrong so that they could come and try to kick them out of being election commissioners. And they tried to do that. Fortunately, that failed. But that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, we definitely can't have Kim Hammer as Secretary of State, so vote for Brian Norris, Secretary of State in Arkansas primary.
Yeah, Brian Norris is, if y'all don't know who Brian Norris is, I've had him on the program before. He is an outstanding young man. He's got 21 years in the military. He's a combat veteran. He has fought hard for this country. He has put his life on the line for this country, unlike the other people that are running against him. He's the guy that we need in the state of Arkansas. And so I can't tell you enough. If you haven't voted, if you're going to vote tomorrow in early voting or even on Election Day, please tell all your friends and tell your coworkers that they must vote for this guy. Because let me tell you what Kim Hammer's done. The guy,
don't
the main
vote
guy,
for Kim Hammer.
Kim Hammer's running against him for Secretary of State in the Republican primary. Let me tell you what he's done. He's passed a lot of laws that have been overturned or not, or at least put injunctions against, because judges who have seen this say, "Hold on, this is clearly unconstitutional," but yet they are laws that he forced to get passed. And if you watch any of the videos, and I know most people just don't have the time to go to the legislative website and look at the videos and the debate that they're having when they pass these laws, you will see there's no deliberation at all. Very little.
No, they're being talked to.
They're being talked to. They're being told this is the way it's going to go. They already know they got the votes. And so there's very little deliberation. And this is what happens when you have a solid one-party rule in the state. They kind of just walk through anything they want, even if it's unconstitutional. And so, there was one law, Will, you brought up, that just got overturned, or at least an injunction against just lately, just like a week ago.
Yeah. One of the laws, so the Arkansas Constitution says you have to be able to get signatures from at least 15 counties. That's the minimum. And your signatures have to come from at least 15 counties. So that way you don't just sit in one county and get all the signatures and the rest of the state doesn't have a say.
Yeah, we have 75 counties in the state of Arkansas. And so in the Constitution, you say it said 15.
15.
At least 15. And then the state legislature didn't like it because people were getting things on the ballot that they didn't want. So they then upped it. What did they up it to?
To 50, 5-0.
To 50. So 2/3 of the counties they wanted to have, for you to have to go get signatures in instead of the 15 most populated, you had to go to all these others, which makes it very difficult.
That's difficult on its own by having to spread out if you're trying to get something on the ballot. Now, this isn't getting something automatically passed as a law. It's just letting the voters have a say. And they didn't like that. So not only did they move it to 50 counties, they also then said you can't hire help. You can't pay by the signature. You can't bring people from out of state. You can't do – so they just made it pretty much impossible to do a petition drive the way they've historically been done to be successful.
And let me tell you why that's – Will and I have a little experience about doing some of this stuff up in Wisconsin. I wish I didn't have the experience, but I have it, and I understand how difficult it is in order to get signatures from people, because you got to approach people when they're at home, or when
if you're knocking on the door, coming out of a Walmart,
or coming out of some store. And people, typically, particularly when it's really, really hot, like in the summer, they don't want to sit around and talk. And so you got to be very quick about saying, hey, I'm doing this. Here's the issue that we're trying to get signatures on. Are you a registered voter? Would you like to sign? It's pretty simple, but they've put in all of these additional things you have to go through. For example, you can't have anybody from out of state. Now, let me tell you why that's a problem. If you've got some really, really good MAGA people, like in Arizona or in Mexico or in Florida, who want to come up and help the state of Arkansas get, hand-marked paper ballots, right? And they want to come up and help, and you say, great, you can do that. And all they're doing is getting signatures. They're not doing anything other than
asking. They're not voting on it.
They're not voting on it. They're just talking to the people of that county, and then all those signatures have to be verified by the county clerk. So they're not doing. There's no forgery involved here. They're just other people,
nothing nefarious,
who are willing to work and do this type of job. Now, there's two ways you can pay. One way is by the signature. The other way is by the hour. The hour is very, very difficult because it becomes very expensive, because you may find someone that you've hired and they work,
they work.
They work,
Yeah.
and you're obligated to pay them. And if they're there, 10 hours and they get one signature and you're paying them $20 an hour, well, you just pay $200 for one signature, right? So that becomes very expensive. But if you do it by the signature, then you have other challenges, but at least you know what you're getting. And if they get one signature, well, then they get whatever you're paying for the signature if it's valid. That's it. And then you double check to make sure that the county clerk says it's good. But if you go the other way, so what they did is they came in, they said you can't pay by the signature in Arkansas. You have to pay by a salary, or by the
hourly rate, yeah.
And so that is, they make it then probably. What would you think? 3 times more expensive minimum?
Yeah.
Minimum, 3 times more expensive to do it that way. So they passed that law. Then they said you can't bring anybody from out of state at all. And in fact, if you're doing a countywide referendum, you can't bring anybody from outside that county. Now, how ridiculous is that? Okay, so how many people live like in Faulkner County and they've got friends and relatives in Pulaski, or people who go to their church in Pulaski who would love to come up and help, but they can't because they're not residents of Faulkner County.
But the one thing they did is they limited the workforce. Like it's removing a pool of workers and whittling it down to so few that you'll never have enough people to do what needs to be done, because they also only give you a little time period.
Right, you have a very short time period within which to get these signatures, and what's really funny to me with Kim Hammer, I'll just say, what's really funny is that Kim Hammer doesn't want anybody from outside Arkansas, helping a county committee or somebody trying to get something on the ballot. Oh, that's verboten. You can't do that. However, you can have outside people giving you donations. That's not a problem.
Yeah, out-of-state people can give all the money they want.
They can give all the money they want. They don't have any problem with that. Those people, then they're actually influencing an election. Okay, getting signatures is not influencing anything. That's just getting something on the ballot. But giving money to a candidate so that they can beat a local guy, so you can have somebody from out of state come in and give money, okay, and then let's say you're JP and you want your JP, but somebody from out of state could come and give money to the other JP, right, the one that you don't want, so he wins. So how is that right? It's not right. It's absolutely wrong, and they know it. And this one judge at least was smart enough. Somebody filed suit, and this one judge was smart enough to understand that you can't just willy-nilly change the Constitution and say, you know what, we don't really care what the Constitution says.
We're going to make a law that supersedes it.
We're going to make a law. That's right. And it's not the final word.
Yeah, that's not. But another ironic aspect of Kim Hammer's laws about nobody from out of state coming to help or people from moving over into different counties is that while he's doing these bills, he sponsored a bill that allows non-domiciled truckers to work on the streets of Arkansas, which means you can be from a foreign country, have a CDL license that's never been vetted by American companies, and they're allowed to drive on the roads of Arkansas. That's perfectly fine driving a 30,000-ton missile through the street without knowing if they've ever been trained properly or not. But God forbid somebody come from Oklahoma and help in Fort Smith to get signatures.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, there was a lot of pressure, to ensure that these people can drive because it drives the cost down for these trucking.
The per mile,
for the big trucking companies.
Like J.B. Hunt.
And all that. In fact, I was told something on our show a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was so interesting. And it was, if you see a J.B. Hunt truck and the cab, the actual truck that's pulling the trailer, if it doesn't have J.B. Hunt on it, then it's one of these subcontracted entities. Could very well be a entity that has foreign drivers. Even though it's got J.B. Hunt on the trailer, the actual tractor that's pulling it could be driven by a foreign national that's never been vetted, or as they got one of these fake CDLs that we've been hearing about by the Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah.
This is the problem by Sean Duffy.
Yeah.
And so this is the problem that we have. But we've got legislators here in Arkansas that are more than happy to write legislation for the lobbyists to help those entities.
To punish American truckers by letting foreign drivers on our street.
That's right.
Unvetted.
That's right. But they will not, guess what? They will not, support the average Arkansas citizen who's trying to get something on their ballot. They made it so difficult, so almost impossible to do, and so financially expensive that it's going to be impossible. So these laws, I think, are going to be overturned, and there have been a couple that have been. There have been injunctions against them. Do you remember which ones they were?
Well, they had the ones on the expansion of the signature requirements, making you read like a paragraph to somebody before they sign, making them sign an affidavit and if you sign this, you might be able to go to jail if any kind of fraud happens. Like, it's a really weird, long disclosure you have to read before checking their IDs.
Then you got to ask for their ID. Now think about this, folks. How many people, if you're walking out of Walmart and you got somebody approaches you or wherever, and they go, or they come to your house, knock on your door. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I'm doing this petition drive, but before you do this, I got to read this and tell you that if you sign this and you've done something wrong, it could be a felony against you. Also, by the way, just to let you know, I got to see your ID before I get. How many people are going to do that? They're going to go, get out of here.
Yeah, even if you agree with what you're wanting to sign.
Right, I'm not going to show you my ID. You're at my house. But under Kim Hammer's law, you have to do that. So they've made it impossible, folks. They're taking your voice away. That is the fact. And we're trying to fix that. But at least there was an injunction against that particular law.
That's 3 of Kim Hammer's petition bills now that have been at least put on hold by judges at the lower level. But what's more concerning after that is that the Attorney General wants to keep fighting to take the people's rights away.
Yeah, you would think that Tim Griffin, Mango,
Letitia James.
You would think that. I mean, he's, I guess, an accomplished attorney. Okay, and I would think so. He, at least he's went to law school here. And you would think that he would understand that some of these laws, just by reading them, that they're unconstitutional. How come he hadn't said anything about it? He's not said one word about it.
No, he's fighting for the laws to keep stripping away the rights of the citizens. He's defending them.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling that our Attorney General is protecting and supporting laws that are clearly unconstitutional, but he wants to do it anyway. Where is his voice? He's not speaking up. He's not saying anything. It's just mind-boggling to me, but we're going to get to the bottom of all that hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yeah, because Brian Norris has a lawsuit on one of the election laws that says you can't be within 100 feet of a door, so that means you can't exit poll.
Right. Let me tell you about this exit poll thing. This is nuts. This is just absolutely crazy. And something that we found out that Brian Norris filed a lawsuit against that particular law. And that law basically says that nobody can be within this 100-foot bubble. And if you go back and listen to the actual video of the debate, which was not much of a debate, there were some really good arguments, though, that were brought up by Clark Tucker and a couple of other people, because it says that under no circumstances can anybody be in this bubble unless you are on your way to the facility to vote or you're leaving, or for a legal purpose going into the building. Like, for example, if you're having an election day in a recreation center and people are coming in there to go to the pool, well, then they have a right to walk through that 100-foot zone, right? But no exit polling. Well, that's clearly unconstitutional. If you read anything about exit polling across the United States, almost every federal case has said that you cannot put a restriction on people's right. It has to be narrowly defined when you put some kind of restriction on a constitutional right. You can't just say willy-nilly everybody. It has to be defined. It has to be a reason in the federal in the interest of the government to do that. But in exit polling, you're only talking to people when they come out. You're not talking to people going in. And every court has ruled that does not interfere with elections. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you cannot restrict it. You can't restrict it. And so Brian Norris is filing a lawsuit, or has filed a lawsuit on that, because he wants to do an exit poll on March 3rd. But lo and behold, there's another case that I didn't know about. There's another exit poll that was done in Arkadelphia in March of 2024, in the primary of that year, and they did an exit poll. It was the Arkadelphian online newspaper, and they published it. They published the results. The editor said they got nothing but compliments from everybody. In fact, he even said that the election poll workers there, the election commissioners, had no problem with him doing it at all. And he did it, and he was standing 15 feet from the door. 15 feet. And he was there for 6.5 hours, he and another guy. And they did exit polling with no problems. There were no complaints, nothing. But guess what else? Nothing happened. Nobody prosecuted them. Nobody went after them. It was completely ignored. It was like it was no problem. But until we did an exit poll that they just on paper ballots, then they had a problem with it. They had a problem with the paper ballot issue. And I tell everyone, go ahead.
It shows the selectiveness that this law can open up.
Oh, yeah. So. And if you don't believe that these machines can be manipulated or can be can be altered in such a way to impact the vote, if you don't believe that, ask yourself, why are they going so hard and have for 3 years against everything, against getting rid of the machines? Why would they care how somebody votes in Searcy County, Arkansas?
Yeah, as soon as Cleburne County announced that they were going to go to paper ballots, Kim Hammer hurried up and rushed through a law, SB 250, which became Act 350, to punish the county for going to paper ballots financially and put restrictions on their hand counting.
That's exactly right.
And the minute they decided to go to paper ballots.
They tried to make it painful, and they tried to make it to where then they said you're going to get go bankrupt in your county. The other thing that happened, and people don't really know a lot of this, is that there was a lot of pressure behind the scene from the AAC, the Association of Arkansas Counties, on all of these JPs, and also on the county judge. They put a lot of pressure on them to make sure that they never went to paper ballots. There was a lot of effort across all different agencies to put pressure on them. Why? Why would they care?
But the most telling part is what happened last week when we found out that the Independence County Quorum Court voted to overturn the will of 63% of the Independence County voters and say they're not going to do a paper ballot election this year.
Man, now listen, folks, you got to listen to what Will just said, because that's very, very important. Because none of us knew what had happened, but apparently in December. Now, bear in mind, the people in Independence County, which is Batesville, Arkansas, which basically is where I grew up in my high school years, They voted overwhelmingly, 63%, in November of 2024 to go to hand-marked paper ballots that are hand-counted in their future elections. That was in November of 2024. Now, fast forward a year and a month later, they then, on December, a couple of months ago, they quickly met and they voted on a new ordinance that overturned the people's will. It overturned the people's vote. And they did it in a time frame where you had very little time to respond. So there's no doubt the response is, well, we just simply can't. We don't have enough time now. It's impossible. That is what they're trying to do. But can you imagine that? 9 people, 9 of the justices of the peace, and it was all 9 of them voted to overturn. Mm-hmm. All 9 of them. There were 11, but 2 were absent. But the other 9 who were there, 100% of them, all of them voted to overturn the people's will.
So 63% of the county says we want hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. 9 people of the county say no, and they get their way.
And they cited the county attorney's argument that said, there was a new law that was passed,
or Supreme Court
ruling that gave them the authority to do this. That's basically what he said, which is not true. Mm-hmm. And so the state constitution does not give them the authority to do this. So it'd be interesting to see.
Because Brian Norris filed a lawsuit on that.
Brian Norris, he's fighting for your rights, folks. I'm telling you. But he filed a lawsuit on that, and there's supposed to be a hearing on that on Wednesday.
Tomorrow, no, 2 days from now. Yeah.
Wednesday, in Independence County. So there'll be a hearing on that particular case, because really they broke the law. There's no doubt in my mind that they broke the law. I'm not an attorney, but we'll see what the judge says. But I think that's going to be a huge decision, because if the court does what I think it should do, which is say, you broke the law, you are not allowed to do this, you have to use paper ballots. And they're going to be screaming, he's going to say, figure it out. You had you waited a year and a month before you passed this resolution to overturn the will of the people.
Trying to push what it would do is try to force a judge into a snap decision of saying, well, we don't have time. And I don't think a judge is going to appreciate their timing on this.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And I think that the judge will say, well, we'll see. We'll know. You know what? Next Monday we'll be able to tell you because we'll have the answer about on Wednesday, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of that, Will and I have got a lot of things going on in D.C. We've got about 20-some minutes left. You want to talk about D.C.? You want to got anything else in Arkansas you want to talk about?
Well, in D.C. we've been trying to push the efforts because, as you can see here in Arkansas, under a Republican governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Republican supermajority, a citizenry who want hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots, we can't get anything done.
No.
And so we're having to fight up in D.C. to try, the word federalizing elections has been coming up lately. The president said we need to federalize elections, and people are fighting. We don't need that. We don't need that. But they've already been federalized. The Help America Vote Act.
Well, of 2002, the Help America Vote Act pretty much changed. They changed everything. And you could have had that argument back then. No one did.
No.
Because they were trying to usher in electronic voting. And they were doing everything they could to make sure they could get electronic voting in every state. And doing so, they authorized, the U.S. Congress authorized $4 billion that would be used to pay for these new machines. And who does all that money go to? It goes to about 3 machine companies here in America. So they were just making hand over fist money to be able to sell all these machines. The way they designed them and the way they've made them, you're tied to them for life. Here in Arkansas in 2006 was when ES&S got here. We've never gotten rid of ES&S. They've been here the whole time. We've never had any other voting machine company, and they have taken over. And
they run our whole election.
And they're not even. Here's another entity that's not even in Arkansas. It's not an Arkansas entity. They are in Nebraska. Yet they run all of our.
Kim Hammer's okay with that.
Hammer's okay with that. He's in fact when he had his little radio show or podcast, whatever the heck he was doing, he was bringing on the executives from ES&S. He didn't invite one cybersecurity expert in the country. He didn't talk to one of the computer scientists, all of whom have said these machines are vulnerable and should never be trusted. He didn't bring any of them. He brings on the company that is making money from Arkansas. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's going to push their propaganda, their talking points, not the opposite side in any way, shape, or form. No arguments, no debates. Nothing.
No debates, no arguments, but I think that more and more is coming out. I would hope that we would have had everything revealed by now, ladies and gentlemen. We have told you that we expected things to come out. They haven't come out as quickly as we had hoped. There's a lot of reasons, I understand, for that. National security issues that have raised their head, and there's a lot of reasons why. But they will come out.
Yeah,
I know that I know it.
But there's a lot of swamp trying to make sure the truth doesn't come out of what's really been happening behind the scenes in terms of the machines, the mail-out ballots, all the different aspects. And I think the president is tired of them resisting.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of people in that surround the president. There's differences of opinion, and unfortunately, that has caused some significant delays in what we wanted. We wanted to have this thing resolved before the Arkansas primary. It hasn't materialized, but we'll see what happens in the next 2 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. But I think everybody like us all understand we've got to do something this year. We have to do something this year, and I hope they do.
Yeah, the midterms will be a mess if we don't have safe and secure elections. And we get people saying all the time, well, President Trump's been elected twice. How's that possible if there's cheating? And it's like there are ways to cheat and ways to overcome the cheating. And I think not every race and not every election is manipulated. And like in a presidential election like 2024,
yeah, right.
Like you could say, okay, President Trump's going to win, but no Senate candidates are going to win. Like in Wisconsin, you had Hovde lose his Senate race while Trump wins the state.
Yeah, well, look at Kari Lake.
Yeah, Arizona.
And Kari Lake. Trump won, and Kari Lake lost.
Yeah.
To Gallegos or whatever. I mean, you got to be that. I think it's the guy that won the Senate. Unbelievable. I mean, really and truly, that's really not possible. Most people will tell you that when you first look at that, you say something's wrong here. But we'll see what happens. To my understanding, there's going to be a deep dive look into Arizona. Mm-hmm. They're doing a deep dive look right now into the Georgia ballots. That will be very interesting. And because they fought so hard, I think there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come out of that very soon.
Yeah, and speaking of Arizona, Kristi Noem was there this Friday, and she did a press conference talking about the SAVE Act and how we need to make sure it's only American citizens voting. They must show ID and no mass mail-out ballots except for the military or the sick. So what does it mean by mass mail-out? In Arkansas, people thought that meant absentee ballots. But they don't understand, like in Arizona, 2 months before the election, they mail a ballot to every single registered voter on the voter roll.
Right. It's really easy to get registered there. And in fact, in some cases, they had 20 or 30 ballots going to an empty parking lot with a mailbox on it. And somebody got those.
Yeah, and the voter rolls aren't cleaned up.
Voter rolls are horrible, and that's one of the reasons we have to go to paper poll books, and we have to go to smaller precincts, and we got to get rid of these vote centers. Unfortunately, all these things are so convenient. It's hard to get people to understand that you cannot have them. Just because they're convenient doesn't make them secure. They're not, or it makes it harder. And I think some of the people that I've talked to don't care. They just want the convenience. They don't care. They would rather stick their head in the sand and say, well, I haven't seen anything, and I haven't seen any fraud. So, therefore, I want to stick with a system. Even though it's got vulnerabilities, I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, look at Arkansas. That's solid red.
Yeah.
There's never nothing wrong with our touchscreens for everybody system.
Oh, yeah. It's Republicans are winning. How can anything be wrong? I've heard this over and over again, folks. And but the people that I know that understand this whole issue, the cybersecurity experts, again, the PhDs in computer science, every one of them. I've not talked to one who's told me, no. These are absolutely perfect machines. There's no way they can be manipulated, and there's no manipulation going on. Not one has ever told me that. Not one. And I've talked to literally 30, 40, 50 computer scientists and 15 or so cybersecurity experts. And I'm telling you, every one of them have said, you're crazy for using touchscreen computers in Arkansas. Unbelievable that y'all are doing that. But you got people that are like Kim Hammer who are fighting for it tooth and nail. And
even though the president has asked our governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, to move Arkansas to paper ballots.
Yep.
So
and she hadn't.
She hasn't even addressed the issue. She hasn't come out and said, I support the president's election integrity reform.
Which is another bone I've got to pick with the journalistic lack of journalistic curiosity here in Arkansas. Where are the journalists asking these tough questions of Huckabee? I mean, hey, either you support it or you don't. If you don't, fine, let us know. Let us know that you are 100% in the machine camp. That's great. But don't just ignore and not say anything. But that's what she does. She doesn't say anything.
Her MO is to not have a stance on anything. When she ran for governor, we didn't have stances from anything. We just knew that she was
popular. She's popular.
We just knew that she was that girl that went to a Holocaust museum.
Right.
That's all we knew. That was her whole campaign speech, is that she went to a Holocaust museum and said it would never happen again.
Right.
That she never stood up. She never said what side she's on abortion. She never said what side she's on
well, the Learns Act. She did come up with that. She did say that she was for the Learns Act, and that was good. I mean, I'll give her credit where credit's due. The Learns Act and trying to get that passed, and they were able to make that
trying to make some kind of change.
Move the needle on that, and we had to here in Arkansas. We have to do something like that. So there were a couple of things that she's done. It's been great, but the whole idea,
she never really takes a stance on big issues.
No, not the big issues, but she wants to get all the credit for making sure the Chinese can't buy land here in Arkansas and all that.
But and they can't fly drones.
Yeah, they can't fly drones.
No drones with Chinese parts.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But what about the machines? They're made with Chinese parts. These voting machines, voting computers. Nothing's said about that. No one's even asked her about it. Well, if you use the same logic that you used on the drones, then how can you not get rid of voting machines?
Yeah, because they're all Chinese parts.
All of them. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
But no one ever asked her the question. What's the other one? All these data centers.
Yeah.
That were
in the counties
and all these counties and the people were trying to police their own county and they didn't want them there, and then they come out and say, tough luck, you're going to have them there. You cannot pass a noise ordinance in order to get rid of them.
Yeah. The state went down to the county level and said, you guys can't police your own county. We're going to do that. They have to stay here. These crypto mining and all that.
Right.
Which a lot of them are Chinese owned.
So there are some good things that she's done. I'm not saying that she hadn't, but there's a lot of these things which I think are absolutely critical. If we don't get, and President Trump has said this many, many times, if we don't get our elections fixed, then we're doomed. I mean, we're going to continue to have people that are selected, not elected, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen, and it's been happening.
And one other aspect of anomalies here in Arkansas that shouldn't be happening. We were told by the Truckers Association that the state highway patrol is not allowed to cooperate with ICE in checking citizenship of drivers driving the semi-trucks in Arkansas.
Yeah, what was that? It's a law that the state, or agreement that the state enters into with the federal law enforcement.
Yeah.
That says that you can basically deputize the local law enforcement to talk about immigration enforcement and
be able to check papers.
Be able to check papers and all that. State police can do that.
Yes, but they don't pull over the semi-trucks.
They don't pull over the semi-trucks. And in fact, if you go down Arkansas highways and you see a big semi pulled over, that's not the state police.
It's the highway patrol in those white vehicles.
It's the highway patrol. And guess who doesn't have the authority to enforce immigration law? Those folks. The ones that are actually dealing with the foreign drivers coming through Arkansas. They don't have the authority. Why? Why is that? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, it seems like Governor Huckabee Sanders would be wanting to cooperate with the president and ICE here in Arkansas to make sure that these dangerous drivers, like we just saw what happened in Indiana last week. Driver decided he couldn't stop in time, switched lanes, ended up killing a couple people on the highway, and he was non-domiciled, which means he wasn't from the U.S. His license wasn't from the U.S., but the trucking company he was with ended up being a fraudulent foreign company also. Like, so all around. But these are the people that Arkansas is allowing to continue going across the roads because they're not giving the state highway patrol the authority to check into this stuff.
Well, I will tell you that the first time I really became aware that there were a lot of foreigners driving these big trucks. Most of the time, when I grew up, we had truckers all in Arkansas. A lot of people. I had a lot of friends. Their dads were truckers and drove, across the United States back and forth. And but I went to I had a diesel van that I was transporting from Phoenix to Arkansas, and I had to pull in behind one of these Love truck stations. And I pulled in where all the big trucks park in order to get diesel, but also the DEF, the fluid that you have to have. And I pulled in there, and boy, did I get an eye opener. I didn't see one.
Yeah, American.
Every one of them looked like they were from a foreign country. Every one of them. And I thought, what is going on here? That was my first, realization that something's going on with the truckers in our country. And of course, now it's all come out. And so if you get time, pull in to one of those truck stations, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's just so interesting that a state like Arkansas with a supermajority can't fix that issue of I-40 and I-30. Yeah, Oklahoma did.
Well, there was a law that our guest that we had a couple of weeks ago,
Shannon Everett
had put together, and they presented that to other states as well, and it had to do with checking the ID of the foreign national.
Yeah, right? And making sure they're licensed by reputable CDL companies in the United States.
Right. So,
and that's when Kim Hammer decided, I'm going to do a different law on the opposite and say it's okay for non-domiciled CDLs.
Right. So what you have is Oklahoma, embraced that law and said, yeah, we don't want these people driving in our streets because
it's dangerous.
Yeah. So they passed it. Then I think Missouri passed it. Tennessee passed it. So they were getting it passed in other states, but Arkansas, no way. Would not be able to touch it, all because Kim Hammer did not want to do that. Whoever was lobbying him had a lot of power because he basically said, no, we're not doing that. In fact, as Will just said, he wrote a law just opposite of it that was condoning it and allowing it. And so that really should be all you need to know. I mean, this guy has no business being Secretary of State, none. And so
because he was trying to he's known he was going to run for this office, and then was trying to make laws to give himself his own police force last session.
Did y'all hear about this? Or if you're listening, this is amazing. And I want you to explain that because he tried to pass a law. It died in committee, thank goodness. There were some people there that understood, hey, we can't do this. We can't give this guy a police force. But he was trying, knowing that he was going to run for Secretary of State, he crafted a bill to get passed to basically give him his own investigators for the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, they could go through and look at any incidents that the Secretary of State deemed needed to be looked at. Instead of using the Attorney General, the state police, local police force, he wanted to have his own little private SS, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's amazing,
Secretary of State, that's what SS is for.
Yeah, so amazing. He wanted to do this. And so if that didn't tell you about something about the character of this individual, it's unbelievable. But that's what they tried to do. But thank goodness, again, it died. Thank goodness it did die. It died in committee and didn't go any further than that. But that's where his inclination is. And I'm sure that if he were elected, he'll do everything he can to reach out to the people that he worked with in the Senate and in the House to get them to pass a bill while he's there that gives him that authority. We should never allow that,
and
ever.
We know Arkansas uses these laws selectively, the way they went after you, but not Sarah Huckabee or not any other exit pollers. And so that would be it wouldn't be a far jump to say that they would use this private police force to go after the people you don't like.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we've seen it. I mean, they cherry pick laws and they only use it when they against somebody they dislike. And if it's somebody they like, they just ignore it. They just ignore it. They don't do anything with it. And so it's only used as a punishment tool. It's not used for a valid reason or a governmental interest other than their interest to punish someone. That's what it appears to me.
They love this Chenal cabal here in Little Rock, loves to use the weight of the government to come down on their political opponents.
Yeah,
it's just consistent. It's just like what Joe Biden's DOJ did to MAGA. Right. They're doing the same thing here in Arkansas. And you just got to ask yourself, what is going through their brains? Who is controlling these guys?
And we're a solid red state. And I have people all over the country saying, boy, you ought to be happy. You're living in Arkansas, and you got a great governor, and you got this and got that. But they have no clue what was happening over the last few years, particularly when it comes to the FOIA Act. They're trying to gut that. Trying to take away all our rights as citizens when it comes to petitioning, when it comes to making it more difficult, almost impossible to do, so that we even have a say in our voice. We have to, and say in our county or our state, we have to depend on them. And let me tell you, I have a lot of people told me in the background who've called me up, a lot of legislators who say, man, I'm sorry, man, but I won't get a committee. I won't get a position of prominence, and they'll primary me. They'll send somebody after me. Just ask Brian King, they'll come after me and they'll try to get rid of me. So I really can't afford it, and that is what I hear.
Yeah, you got Wayne Long, Brian King, and a couple others who the governor apparently has been orchestrating their primary opponent and getting them all kinds of dark money to go against them and lie about them in mailers from things we've been seeing and told. So they don't want to go against her because they get punished in their committee appointments. And
I think that I have some information. I don't want to talk about it now, but there's some information about this dark money. I think that if we do a little more, digging with some of the sources that I've had, and they've offered information, I don't know if it's true or not, and I wouldn't want to talk about it if it's not. So we'll check and see. But if it is, it's very disturbing. Some of the information that's coming out about where this dark money is coming from and who's controlling it, and
by dark money, we got all these mailers, text messages, things going out where you can't trace who the organizations are that are sending it out. Right. Like you don't know who's giving the money, where it's coming from, who's authorizing the message, any of that.
Right.
And so, but I've seen a couple things. But before we go, there's a bill that's been proposed by Brian Stile out of Wisconsin in the federal government. It's called the Make Elections Great Again Act.
Right.
And in this act, there's a lot of great things like the mass mailouts, the voter ID. One thing is you got to offer a paper ballot to every voter. They have to be able to choose between a paper ballot or a touchscreen. You can't make them do both. But there's one little thing we don't like. They're calling the ballot summary card that comes out of a touchscreen a paper ballot. We can't.
And that is, we know that is the terminology used by these voting machine companies to confuse people, and they use that as propaganda to say, you got a paper ballot. You're using a paper ballot, which is not, folks. Yes, it is a piece of paper, and yes, it has votes, but it's also marked by a machine. That is a receipt. And so there's a big difference there. And
it's not a paper ballot. In our lawsuit here, the judge said the ballot is the last screen you saw on the touch screen.
Yeah, that's what Judge Fox said.
Yeah, and that had that's when you can see every single option. On that ballot summary card, you don't see every option anymore. So it is not a ballot. It is a receipt of what was on that touch screen.
Supposedly, but we know that there's been a lot of complaints. A lot of people, things were flipped. They were changed. Also, you have the barcode issue, which we've talked about at length on this program. I mean, barcodes are the only thing that's counted by the last machine, the tabulator, the DS200, and that's all. And it cannot read text. And we've talked about this till we're blue in the face. And believe it or not, there are some people who simply don't care. They just say, well, no, I don't think you're right. And I'm going, look, it's counting a barcode. You can't read barcode. It's another language you don't understand, and you're okay with that? They go, well, we've got audits. And then when you show them that the audit's a joke, then they just bury themselves and say, well, I think everything's safe. I haven't seen any cheating. I mean, really, it's just infuriating.
Yeah, they move the goalpost over and over and over.
It's infuriating.
But we can't have that language codified by this Make Elections Great Again Act. So if you have any relationships with congressmen in D.C., make sure you call them and let them know you want them to change the language and define a paper ballot as something marked by hand with a pen or a marker or some type of writing utensil by the voter.
I think what you need to know is that there's two bills. You may want to
SAVE and MAGA.
SAVE and MAGA. Those are the two bills in the federal in Congress. And the SAVE Act simply is a very small, limited bill talking about producing an ID to show and prove that you're a U.S. citizen.
You're a citizen when you register, not when you vote.
Yeah, when you register. You're a citizen when you're registered. And that's what the SAVE Act is, and that's the big battle. It passed the House last week, and it's in the Senate.
Yeah, and they have 50 sponsors in the Senate, but they don't want to kill the zombie filibuster.
They don't want to kill, and if you don't know what the zombie filibuster, well, it's another, we'll talk about that another time. We don't have enough time for that. Yeah. But basically, it's in the Senate. I don't know that it's going to get passed. I have my doubts, to be honest with you. I don't think that they'll do it, but because that's what the Omni Party does. They make it look like everybody's fighting, but then they ultimately vote the way they want to vote.
Yeah,
which
they won't change anything.
I don't think they'll change it. I hope
that's
I'm
why
wrong.
It's going to be the president.
I pray I'm wrong, but I think that it's going to be difficult to do.
It's going to take the president calling a national emergency, which actually there's already a national emergency declared, just continuing it and using his proper authorities, I think.
I think that is 100% right, and we've advocated for that when we've been in D.C., and we'll continue to advocate for that. And if President Trump doesn't fix this now, it's never going to get fixed. I just never see it. We got less than a minute, Will. What other words of wisdom do you want to pass on with your weak voice?
No, we just have to make sure that we're being vigilant this election coming up. A lot of groups are looking for poll watchers to go in and help make sure everyone's following the right rules. And so look around to see how to become a poll watcher. Make sure there's enough poll workers in your county. We got to make sure we have safe, secure elections. And pray for Independence County that this lawsuit goes out, is successful, and they have to answer to the will of the people and do a paper ballot election.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And we won't know until, Wednesday's the hearing, but we may not get a decision for a day or two after that. But certainly the decision will be made one way or the other before next Monday. And you know what next Monday is. It's the Kernel of Truth.
Yep.
And so if it's Monday, it's the Kernel of Truth show. Well, thank you for listening. I'm Colonel Conrad Reynolds along with Will Huff. See you next week.